This study is from a short passage taken from the book of James, chapter 1, verses 2 to 8. Here, James deals with the aspect of trials. Remember that James is writing this letter to the believers who were facing many hardships due to their faith. One attitude to trials. James 1:1-2. Trials are not punishment. Trials have a good outcome. Trials must prompt rejoicing. The first thing that James talks about is our attitude towards trials. Verse 2 deals with the attitude one must have towards trials. In the context, the kind of trials that James talks about are the ones faced because of one's faith in Christ Jesus. James tells the believers to consider it pure joy while facing any trials. This is a very difficult command to follow. One must understand here that the trials in themselves may not be joyful, but they could be seen as a means to an end which is joyful. In other words, joy in trials comes from knowing that the outcome will be good. The life of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is a testimony of this. They did not succumb to the diktat of the king, but stood firmly by their faith, believing that the outcome will be good. They did not look at it as a punishment, but as an opportunity to be a witness for their God. The result was that the king himself had to take back his words, and the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was glorified. The apostles and early church never cribbed about the trials they underwent, but rejoiced because they had been counted worthy of suffering disgrace for his name. So, when we face any trials while exercising our faith, we should not see it as a punishment. It is something that must prompt rejoicing. 2. Advantage of trials. James 1:3-4. Trials produce perseverance. Trials develop faith. Trials make us more mature. Now, the right attitude towards trials has its advantages. In this passage from verse 3 and 4, James speaks about the advantages one can see in facing trial. By the phrase, trials produce perseverance, what James actually means is that when the path is uneven, our willpower will grow further. You would have heard of how the pure gold withstands the test of fire and becomes even more pure. In the same way, true faith bears all kinds of trials, and our faith develops even further. There are quite a few New Testament passages that speak about the value of trials faced because of our faith. In Matthew 5:10, Jesus tells that the kingdom of heaven belongs to those who are persecuted for righteousness. In Luke 6:22-23, Jesus says that those who are excluded, insulted, and rejected because of the Son of Man will have their reward in heaven. Here we can see that God promises rewards in heaven to those who are put to trial here on earth because of him. Now, perseverance is the start. When perseverance is in full bloom, then we will be fully mature in character and ready for anything. That is when God can use us in the way he wants to, and we will not lack anything. 3. Assistance in trials. James 1:5-8. Trials require God's assistance. Trials require God's wisdom. Trials require complete faith. And finally, to those who feel confused about how one can face trials on our own, James makes the point that there is always assistance available during trials. Like a student gets assistance from his textbooks for studying for his trial, which is his exam, a Christian who is undergoing trial because of his faith has his assistance offered from God. God will provide you with the wisdom needed to make the right choices during times of trials. The only thing that we need to do from our part is to believe and not doubt, because God is not pleased with a double-minded person. Brothers and sisters, the situation today is no different. We also must face many trials because of our faith. We must always have a joyful attitude towards any trial for being a Christian. We can be joyful if we recognize the advantage of being more mature by enduring it. We must always know that we have God to whom we can readily go for any assistance. James goes on to say in verse 12 that, "Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, because when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him."